Hello. Good morning or good zone, wherever you are right now. I am Leia, your moderator for this panel and the mechanics lead for the TTRPG team creating Confluence, which we are here to talk about today. With me today, I have David, our settings lead, Candy, a writer on our settings team, and Viditya, a designer on our mechanics team. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. David, you want to go first?
Sure. My name is David Castro, they, them. I'm coming to you from New York City. I am the setting developer for Confluence. I'm also a developer for Scion from Onyx Path, and I write too many games to name. But some of them include Scion, Trinity, Continuum, Scartlands, and uh, more. Um, uh, and you can find me on Twitter at the Inked Knight.
Candy?
Yes, I'm Candy Williams. I am the executive producer of Dicey and Amazon's Entertainment and also the game master for our TTRPG shows, and also a setting writer on Confluence. This is actually my first writing gig that I was hired on, and I've been having so much fun. But oh yeah, and since I've been, you didn't know that?
I didn't know that. You're doing great. Keep at it.
Thank you. And since then, I have written for Hit Point Press and a few other things. And you can find me on Twitter at Candy, Kandi _ Janine, JeAnne.
And Viditya.
Hey everybody, I'm Viditya. I use he him pronouns. I'm an interactive artist and game designer. I make my own games. I primarily work in tabletop, and that's why I'm here. I make a bunch of my own stuff. I've also worked on a bunch of indie games like Spire and Wander Home and Starfinder and a lot of other smaller ones too. I work on a lot of World Champ Game Co. Games and various other wonderful indie designers and other stuff. I just games is kind of all I do. So you can find me basically anywhere at Viditya Valetti. That's my name.
Awesome. And as I said, I'm Leah Liebzeller, she, they. I'm a TTRPG designer, content writer. Confluence is also my first official gig. A lot of our people are kind of getting their start with us, which is great. This is only a subset of our team, so there you go. I am the mechanics developer, and in my life, I just basically centered my entire life around games. So I'm a professional GM for tour guide games. And I am primarily an anthropologist that studies game communities. So my research is focused on LARP and TTRPG communities, and I'm currently working on my dissertation on the shift from in-person to online play and tabletop gaming communities during the pandemic. So that's like, I don't know, my day job. And you can find me at Play Scholar. One word, pretty much anywhere, mostly on Twitter and TikTok. But I am looking for new socials spaces to be. So if anyone has any suggestions, now is the
I'll
time.
see you later. Yeah.
All right. So we're actually, we're a subset of the Confluence team. We're here to talk about Confluence today. And I'm just going to do like a very basic intro, and then we're going to get way more into the weeds with what Confluence is. But on its face, Confluence is a TTRPG, but it is also the ninth era of the Cosmic Mirror, the world in which our story will exist. The Cosmic Mirror is a mirror floating through space. Its dendians are deeply varied, some strange, some familiar, and over 14 eras and 700,000 years, the mirror evolves, first containing only light, then matter, then gravity, then time, which we're all really having a lot of fun playing with, and finally conscious beings, beginning with gods, and then diversifying over millennia. In the ninth era, so-called Confluence, a glitch occurs, and people, animals, plants, lakes, forest objects, ideas, even entire cities begin to be pulled from their original place into Confluence, crashing into the mirror. Most are pulled from other eras of the mirror, but over time, they are pulled from other universes, creating a world where anything is possible and where anything can happen. And that's where players are going to start, is in this world that literally anything can happen. So that's been a fun ride and mechanics team figuring out how we're going to do that.
Oh yeah.
The long history of Confluence, whose universe was first conceived in 2002 as a world created by Vanessa Seven Peterson, the owner of Publishing Goblin, and our boss, was one was one handed to us with two other written systems from 2017 and 2020, and a plethora of other card games and RPGs that had been written and published before the Confluence team was brought together. So today we will be talking about the history of this world, as well as what it's been like to design and build and write a game with so much previous history. And with that, I'm going to get into our questions. Um, Anyone who is joining us from the Publishing Goblin Discord, I have taken your questions, and they are deeply a part of the questions that we have going on today. Um, so just know that. And then for anyone on Twitch, I will try to get to questions given to us from chat today. If we don't get to all of them, we will be in the Discord after, the Big Bad Con Discord after. So we can answer all of your questions there if you want to continue the conversation as well. So the first question is, what is Confluence, and how did it come to be? I don't know who wants to take this question, but I'm gonna throw it to y'all.
So, I mean, you just answered kind of a lot of that in
Yeah.
your breakdown,
I know.
actually. But like, if you want to kind of break it down to its smallest bits, Confluence is a world that has been pulling from other worlds. And so now you have all of this. Oh, now you have all of this, all of these beings, all of this flora, fauna, all of these things that have never existed in Confluence, that is being pulled over thousands of years into this one world, and now everybody needs to figure out how to live together and grow together.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, it's it's a really as Leia mentioned, it's a really expansive setting past the game time that you're actually in. There are hundreds of thousands of years before and after it that both affect the now, which I think makes it one of the more unique settings that I've ever worked on.
Mm-hmm. I think like that's definitely like, you know, I've seen a lot of like what I guess I call like kitchen sink settings, right? It's like, hey, we want some fantasy, we want some sci-fi, we want other things, but Confluence is really unique in both its, I mean, like as a challenge and as a setting and stuff like that, with history being really important, and just how unique a lot of like the stuff in it is.
Yeah. On my end, so for anyone who doesn't know kind of the history of the team and how Confluence, well, I mean for everyone, but some of the people who have been a part of Seven's the Alleyman Tarot deck will know some of this history already. So in 2021, Seven put together a a tarot deck that was supposed to make, like, I think it was supposed to be a Kickstarter with $65,000, and it made 1.5 million, and became the top tarot seller of all time or something insane, and has won a couple of awards now. And it was that Kickstarter that allowed Seven to bring this game kind of into life and bring a team in. So the history was that in 2017 and 2020, Seven had written the Confluence TTRPG, which I play tested at that time, in both of those times, and I loved the setting so much. But Seven was never happy with it, and so was like, obviously, I can't do this myself anymore. It's not working the way that I want it to, and so put this team together specifically to bring it into the world, which has been really, really fun. But it does absolutely mean that we have had to work from material that started in a 14-year-old's brain in 2002, that has evolved over the last 17 years, and then was given to us and has now evolved even more. um so we've kind of answered this already, but given that, um, let's go a little bit more into the second question, I guess, which is, what type of gameplay do the mechanics promote? What does the setting feel like? How are mechanics and setting melded together in the game? Which we can also kind of roll into the third question, which is, what is it like building from and often scrapping previous material, both for setting and mechanics?
Ugh.
I know those are all huge questions.
Yeah.
Just gut reactions. It's fine.
No,
I can
that's
start. I can start. I can start. It's so it's both difficult and not to take somebody's work and go, cool, I like this, I don't like that, I like this, I don't like that. I'm keeping this. Oh, that thing you really liked, sorry, it's getting cut. It is both easy and hard to do that. In that Seven knew from the start that like some of his like babies would have to uh hit the chopping block, and
Mhm.
was okay with that because they knew that we're not coming at this trying to like make it something completely different. From a like actual like process side, most of that involved me making the choice to not read the original stuff until we were done with the original like crafting of the thing, so that I could have like Leia and our other more entrenched people explain it to me, and me not knowing anything go, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
And cutting the things or changing the things that didn't make sense from the outside not knowing standpoint. I of course eventually did come up to speed with the old stuff and have been mixing that back in, but that's where like that's how that worked. For the setting, it feels like you're in a melting pot, like even in the parts of the setting that aren't particularly like urban, there's still that feel of very like integrated cultures from a vast swathe of like levels and genres, and in that way you can get the sort of feeling that it gets to like live in a very diverse place. I'd like to hear from either of the two of you about the mechanic side, though.
Yeah. I think like that's the melting pot thing is really important to the mechanics. I'll also start kind of with like what it was like, or Leia, it would be nice because like you had experience with the previous system, so like the initial move from one to the other, and then I can also talk about coming in midway of like the first iteration or whatever that, and then coming in after that also. If we want to kind of talk about the
Yeah,
previous version before we get into
yeah, absolutely.
where it is
So,
now.
the my my initial foray into Confluence is actually kind of a hilarious story, because Seven had just finished up, was just starting playtesting for the 2017 system at about the same time that I was finishing my master's thesis, and I was like, "Hey, Seven, I will playtest I will playtest this game so much with so many people if you just do me this one this one favor of editing my 200-page master's thesis. And they did. They did. And so that was the original 2017 version. I got conned by my roommate, who I love very much, into running a game for my advisor, which anyone who has been in academics understands is like wild when you're a master's student and you're like, okay, I guess now I'm the GM for my advisor, and the roles are switched, which is great. It was absolutely nuts. Um but yeah, the 2017 version was phenomenal, and it hit so many of like the setting itself like drew us all in, and it was incredible to run that game. And then 7 was like, nah, this sucks, and scrapped it. And 3 years later came out with the 2020 version, which I play tested again with some people. 7 had gone very crunchy, moved from a pretty not crunchy to a very, very crunchy system. And we were like, Bay, this the world is great. The world is so good. And so 7 was like, cool, and scrapped the entire thing. And I was like, look, anytime you want help with this, just call me. Just call me. And then they did in April of 2021, and was like, hey, we need to put a team together. Help me put a team together. So that yeah, I don't know if that actually answered the question, but the world really reeled me in, and the that's why I was so excited to be working on this. And we decided we needed a team of mechanics people that were going to be both have crunchy feels, but also be able to just like say no. No, these mechanics need to go. We're done. Axum. Takuma, we will be Takuma is one of our other team members. I don't think he's in chat today, but if you listen to this video, we love you so much for your ability to say no, that's too complicated.
That's too,
They are our champion of that, and I'm so happy to have them on our team.
Takuma Okada, designer of like Stew Pot and A Lot Among the Stars and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
absolutely prolific designer. Lovely to have him on.
I don't know. Did that help at all?
Yeah, I mean, like I could definitely pick up from there where it's like the version of Confluence that I came in with was definitely like so the playtest version that I read before I joined in, like that was the actual one was really a lot. Like it was a lot of a game, and I was like, wow, this is daunting. And then when I came in, the three of y'all, Danny, talking to Leia, had stripped it down a lot more, and I was like, cool, good, nice. So happy about that. And so, but like I think when it like specifically the question like what type of gameplay did the mechanics promote, that was something that was like we were trying to find, and now we feel like we've really found a really good spot with that. But like the question of, is Confluence like an adventure game? Is it like a game where like combat is going to happen in every session, or is it a social game? Like there's all these like questions where like your core mechanics will kind of help guide players into that kind of story. And so when Confluence is like it's a setting where anything can happen, any kind of story can be told. What we like, or at least like what kind of kept happening is it kept going into like, I want to say like familiar territory, but like kind of boring is not the right word, because it's not boring. I really do not want to say that, because it is a fun type of game, but we were like, it seems like it didn't have like an identity in the actual story that the mechanics were helping us tell. So now I think like an important thing that like we really me, Takuma, and Seven like sat down and we're like, okay, because we brought like we were like, Seven, just talk to us like pure concept, like what do you want a session, like what do you want campaigns of Confluence to feel like we're talking like character level thing. Like we're like just like what are the kind of journeys that you want these characters to go on, and the arcs that they want to have, like what's your vision of that? And they were like, I want them to travel around Confluence. Or like, cool, we need to have like some kind of concept of travel, or like journeying. And then it's like, okay, and then like, you know, conflict, we want them to engage with the setting. So we're like a lot of community things, like a lot of engaging the players into the setting, which we're currently doing with a lot of like player driven world building, or like player like mechanics that have the players set truths into the world, or like easily ask for information. So you're like, you know, players don't need to read the entire like atlas to know what's going on. Like they feel comfortable in Confluence right out of character creation. And then also we really want to like, you know, like your adventuring party, like, or you know, your the people that you're adventuring with, the people that you're journeying with, need to be important to your character, and the impacts that you make on the communities that you enter, like both you onto them and them onto you. And that's kind of like that's where like what kind of gameplay do the mechanics promote? Like right now, it's a lot of it's a game about exploring Confluence, and the mechanics are all about like meeting people and talking to them, getting to know the location that you're in, figuring out what you can do to help. I feel like in all of our playtests, we've also done a pretty good job of it not being like, you know, the adventure issue of all like everything's shit until you show up. It's kind of like it's so far it's worked out in a way where it's like people are asking you for help. You come in and then like you're bolstering the community because you're like, you know, you've got skills that they're kind of missing, but you're not like just solving the issue. A lot of time, you know, it's like, oh cool, like, you know, we have like kind of two phases of play, very simple, you know, and the first phase is a lot of meeting people, and then the second phase is like, cool, we've helped them, they've helped us, now let's like tackle the issue that's at hand and stuff like that. And that's like that's the kind of game I feel like, you know, when we talk about like what kind of gameplay do mechanics promote, it's like what is the identity of the game, and that's kind of like really what we want is like Confluence. The setting is really cool, and we want players to explore it and feel comfortable in it because there's also a lot of it going on, and that's like, you know, it's a game about being entrenched in the setting, is I guess the best way to put it.
I am muted. Yep. We have been trying to. So on our team, we have this spectrum of different types of game players, and also game masters, or what's called in Confluence story leaders. Where we have like the crunchiest of crunchy, Danny Hennigan, who is amazing at being so crunchy and like very prep oriented, um and you know, like often runs World of Darkness and Shadowrun and D&D and things like that, all the way to Takuma, who has like, I have one sentence prep for a game, let's go.
Yeah.
Like I want to do nothing. And so far, I think one of the things I'm most excited about for the feel of the game is that we have been able to take both of those really broad ends of the spectrum, and they both have fun prepping and running Confluence as it is. So it feels like you can be who you want to be in the type of gameplay that you want to have, no matter what mix of players or types of people you have at the table. And that, I think, is one of the most exciting things about the feeling of the mechanics right now. But Candy, I'd love to hear from you.
Having play tested the game a couple of times, I'm really excited about like the last play tests that we've done. it like the game was so much fun, and I feel like it really drove the narrative of the story. So even when you're getting into conflict or combat, like it's not super crunchy, because super crunchy for me like takes you out of sort of the narrative. But it's just enough to like keep you into the narrative and keep you going, and creating that story. And so very happy right now with the latest iteration. I can't wait to play test again, and see where it goes from there. And I'm loving how it's really built off of the setting. And so you can tell like some games where like the mechanics are sort of, they're not built with the setting in mind. And this absolutely is.
Yeah.
And I would like to add that like there is enough crunch there because I'm the kind of player that like I don't do well in like very narrative systems. I don't do well in like Powered by the Apocalypse. I do well in a Shadowrun, in a D&D, in a World of Darkness, where you tell me what I can do, and then I can like feel out the world through the things I can do. And I still had fun with the system. It was very interesting for me to like engage with th- our mechanics mostly and almost completely because they are unique to me. I have so many systems in my brain that it is difficult to keep them straight. I get system bleed all the time. And like this felt, for the lack of a better word, but this is also the perfect word, novel. This is like completely, I've never played a game like this before. And that alone is enough to keep me. So a lot of games I make, I get my copy and it goes on the shelf, and I never actually open the book ever, besides to see my name in it. But like this one, I'll play, and I'll get other people to play, and I think that's the best praise that
No
I can get.
rules. To kind of like again like from like a mechanics standpoint, like we were really glad to hear that, and a lot of our mechanics are inherently tied to the setting, right? Like that is we are definitely making a game that is played in Confluence. In that conversation with Takuma and Seven, when we were kind of figuring out our newest system, it was like we want to make a game for people who are like, I've been writing this setting for 10 years, and I've mapped out every inch of this world and its intricate history. We're like Seven, we're making fun of you here. And Seven's like, I see it. And we're like, this is a game for people like that who are like, I want to I just want to release like my setting. And then we're like, cool, well then here's the system that's all about like finding that nugget that you really like. You're just like, oh, what is this? Like goblins have moss growing on them? Yeah. And then we just plop that into a little and then you get that as like a mechanic. And so it's like been really nice, like the setting. Every time we're like, what should we be working on? Like, what should we be working on? Like, what's not feeling right? It often has to do with the fact that we're like, it doesn't feel like we're in Confluence now, or like we're reading setting stuff. And it's like, how do we make this work? Because right now it doesn't feel like it's there. And oftentimes it's like, how specific can we go and how broad should we go? Because there's a lot of really specific things that are really cool in Confluence. And we're like, this should really stand out. And then there are other stuff where we're like, well, we can lump kind of like a few of these into a broad mechanical category just to make our lives easier. I think is like we can't make a subsystem for everything,
Can we not?
I mean, you could.
It's just time.
You could. You shouldn't, but you could.
This game needs to end. Like it needs to have a finished product. At that point,
It will. It will.
Yeah.
Yes.
as I
wanna take
will mention again later, it is going to be we're gonna do a crowdfunding campaign, you know, next like summer. So at the very minimum, we have a due date.
yeah, it'll be there.
We do have we do have a question that I'd like to answer from
Oh yeah.
Twitch there.
All
Mhm.
right.
Is it setting agnostic? It is absolutely not setting
No.
agnostic, not at all. As we were just saying, um, the setting and the mechanics walk hand in hand. We're not building the sort of game where you can just fit any setting over it, and like it would be like we're not doing a 5e where you can just go to any setting with it, or a World of Darkness where you'd have different splats with all this stuff. The Confluence mechanics work only in Confluence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On like the and like so an original system like or like before our kind of big rework and the system that we're all really excited about right now. One thing that when I was talking about like it kind of missed an identity, it didn't feel like it was Confluence even though we were playing in Confluence. Was because we had like it was basically kind of like a skill list system. So like we had a bunch of skills, and that's like a good and easy way to like get people because you can make your skills really unique to your setting, and then that kind of shapes how you interact with the world. But what we found was that again it was like that made it setting agnostic to a degree where like at any point you can swap out just like what the skill name is and you change up all that stuff. And so like that's how it's also like really tied to the setting is because our mechanics are all about you like I'm getting a little but like you like I think like you can take our system and move it to another setting, but you would have to do a lot of work to it,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
like which is something that I know at least Taco and I are excited about, where like we want to make a system that is about being very tied to the setting you're playing in. And that means right now like it's very tied to Confluence. Doesn't mean like you should like it is built for Confluence, but like the concept behind the mechanic, like the system, like its intent is to live in a world. So it would take a lot to kind of hack it, but ideally it's about that.
I'm gonna move us to our next question because we are running out of time. Um, but from the Publishing Goblin Discord, I asked for questions earlier this week, and one of them really struck me. I really loved it a lot. So shout out to the person who wrote this. What is one thing, mechanic, or a specific corner of the setting that has changed since Seven moved to a team-based design model, or or that we wouldn't have landed on individually?
I know, at least for me as the setting lead, I think the thing that changed the most are how the phasing work. Um, so the phasing were the sort of like hollow people looking for fulfillment in actions because they didn't have that emotional like fulfillment in themselves, so they were always looking for something else. And what they ended up being is more of a almost aesthetic people who are finding art in the esoteric, and how esoteric you want to get with that is completely up to you. You can find like art in carving things from stone, or taking something from one form and making it another form, or you can find art in destroying things, and whatever that means for your character can be something completely up to you. And sort of moving away from that like empty feeling trying to like fulfill something to more finding like having that wellspring of like fulfillment in you, and then externalizing that to the world to make art is very interesting to me, and is one of the bigger changes we made.
They they definitely went from having no emotion and no soul as a people to having so much emotion and so much soul that they have to bring it to the world. And it's yeah. The Faithing have often been my one of my favorite lineages, and they've become even more so since the team wrote them.
I do really like them.
I think
How
on the
about you,
mechanics
Candy?
side. Oh yeah, how about Candy?
Oh.
Um, oof. There's so much that we've kind of, I mean, I want to say improved. Um, because when you're starting something off as a 14-year-old, pretty much anything goes, right? um, and so there's a lot of things that I think that we have improved, and the one that comes to mind now is because I've been writing them recently, are the Chell and how they've come from a like a lineage of clones, basically, that were just all about, basically they were like in the original game, they're basically slaves to a machine, right? And so we've given them sort of a life of their own. They get a choice in whether or not they want to be regulated by this machine. And it's not this sort of overbearing thing as it was in the original story. And so now it's more of a sort of work together to make sure that our society can thrive thing. And so loving how like we can improve the setting and really just basically go wild with it, and that Seven has given us
Yeah.
the the go ahead to be like, yeah, if there's very little things that Seven has said, oh no, 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 we need to keep this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've given us a lot and said, go
and
ahead, like.
and approximately half of those things I have pushed back against, and we didn't do. So
Oh my god.
True.
so like it was so like another of the biggest changes is like when I joined the team in the like welcome document that we got that like explained the setting, there was like all of this prehistory that was there. Now it's still in the setting, but it's something and the team pushed back against me doing this too, so it all go like turn turnaround is fair play.
Mhm.
um where like there is all of this like prehistory and all of this stuff from even before the 700,000 years of Confluence. There's even more beyond that that like I first read and was like, what does this have to do with what's happening here? Oh, not much. It's just the like setup to get to that setup to get to the game. um and a lot of that has been like pared down and like put into the setting in a way where you can engage with it if that's what you if that's a story you want to tell, but it's not integral the to the story being told, unless you want to focus on the stuff from back then. It doesn't affect anything going forward. It's not information you must know. It's just information that is there that you can touch upon later if you want to. And I think that was one of the biggest changes, both from Seven's original documents and just from what I was doing from the start to like where we are now.
I think basically Confluence as in terms of feel and in terms of like world, is that there's just a vast amount of information. We're doing two whole books because we have to have a core and we have to have the setting, and they have to be different because they're both going to be ridiculously gigantic. Um, but I think how it can be summed up is just consent. Like, what do you want to engage with? how much crunch do you want? How, like, what portion of the world do you want to explore? What types of ideas do you want to have in your games? And you can just choose, and whatever you choose is there for you to do
Uh-huh.
and work with. And I think that's one of the most exciting things. Faditya will be able to talk about this a little bit more too. I'm gonna go super general and just say I could never have created the mechanics that are here now on my own. The one of the things that I love about being the mechanics lead is just to, like, be there to create space for conversations that create these just these totally wild moments and these wild mechanics that are so deeply influenced by every single person at the table.
Yeah.
I there are a few, I think, systems or subsystems or pieces that can be like, oh yeah, that was X person that did that thing. But for me, for most of it, I could not point to most of the system and be like, "Oh yeah, that was Viditya," or "Oh yeah, that was talking about." Like, it's like, no, that was built out of these conversations. By the way, we have 3-hour mechanics meetings every week because all we do is talk through the
All we do
system.
is talk about stuff.
Because we have
Or
4 deeply oral
oral
processors at
processors.
the
Yeah.
table. So we just have these settings is like, I don't know, we meet like once a month or something. And mechanics is like 3 hours every week, um,
I am
which I
envious of
enjoy
the
so
settings.
much.
The setting team has like their stuff. I'm all like, oh, y'all like write stuff and then have a very nice, like good, well laid out system of comments and replying and things like that. And we're just all like, all right, we type some stuff out, but like we have to talk about it. Like it has to be something
Like,
that we
I
talk
don't
about.
think we could do it another way. I
No,
don't think
I
we
can't.
could. I think we could try, but like, I don't think it would work.
We do try in the settings team, and it never works out. We always have to talk about it. We can't type it out. We can't like have that text-based thing. We have to
Yeah,
talk about it.
it's really good.
But Faditya, for you, this is gonna kind of be this is gonna be kind of the last thing that we get to say before we start doing
Mhm.
outros. I think we've got just a few minutes here.
Right. Yeah, I'll talk real quick because I think a really nice thing about say like uh, the we couldn't have done individually is well, like I kind of mentioned, like what I guess like I also would like to call like selective crunch, or the idea of all of us kind of want to write small, like we're all coming from different styles of game, and we all like different levels of intensity, and not even just in crunch, but it's like what do we like, right? Like I Takuma and I are like we could do a lot with a little, which doesn't mean the other two don't, but it's just like that's where we're coming from with this. And so like there's a really wonderful meshing of ideas where it's like okay, um, what if we have like a system, and that's like where the system is now, where it's like what if we have a system where like people can choose what they bring into the game, right? It's if you know about like playbook design, like for PBTA and stuff like that, oftentimes it's like when you bring a playbook into a game, you're adding that element of the story into the game. Like it doesn't necessarily exist unless it's specifically chosen by a player. Um, and so we're kind of pulling from that because some of us have like, like me and Takuma have a little bit more, I guess, experience with like more narrative forward games, or like like PBTA, Fortune of the Dark stuff, where that kind of design mentality comes in. While Leia and Danny have a lot more with like really kind of like the like more about like character customization and very like selective character focused things, we're in a setting that has like a big tome of like here's all the lore, and so we created something really wonderfully unique where a character gets to be like, I am from Confluence, I am this, like this is where I got this skill, and like I want to think about, like I'm a baker, so everywhere we go in Confluence I'm going to be talking to the bakers of this place, I'm going to be learning about how to make unique cuisine from the different cultures, and like unless somebody had brought that, like we call them facets, into the game, they wouldn't exist. Like you don't need to worry about telling that story. You don't need a cooking system unless somebody wants a cooking system, right? And that really came from us, and I know Seven was also just like really excited about that and was all like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds like really good." So yeah. All right, we should
All right.
probably jump.
Yes, we are moving into outros. The person who asked the question, I don't know if it was mentioned, but what is the inspiration or media touchstones for Confluence? I hear you. I see you, and I want each of us in our outros to mention one or two things that we are bringing. There is so much. Okay, we have a reference Discord channel that is like hundreds of references long. So there's no way to tell you exactly how, like, exactly what our inspirations are, because there are so many. But let's add those to our outros. Just one or two things that you are pulling from as you write and as you design for Confluence. Um, and let's, I don't know, let's go the opposite direction of the intros and say Viditya.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hey everybody. I've been Viditya, and yeah, you can find me online at Viditya Valetti. You can find my games at vidityavaletti.itch.io. I am also a writer for hire and a design consultant. So if you're like, I like how this person talks about mechanics, you can have me look at your mechanics and we can talk about them. Uh, and a big thing for me that I pull into Confluence mechanics wise, I would say, like if you're thinking about that, is I really enjoy the Spire and Heart. So that, because those are also like games that's mechanics are highly tied to its setting, and so there's a lot of that going on with with Confluence on its like mechanical side in terms of touchstones.
All right, Candy.
All right. Yes, I'm Candy Williams. I am also a TTRPG designer and writer. You can find me at Candy_Janine on Twitter. Also, I run the Dicey Amazon socials, so you can talk to me there as well. But as far as touchstones, there's so many because there's so much going on in this setting. But one of the things that kind of jumped up is some things from Star Trek, for sure. Um, and let's see. Oh, so much, so much. I would say another one is also sort of like zombie like movies and stuff. Uh, like Living Dead type things. For a couple of the things that I've written for.
All right, David.
Hey, I'm David Castro. You can find me on Twitter at the Inked Knight, all one word. You can find some of my 5e work at patreon.com/inkstain studios. And one of my main influences for the Confluence setting is what I've always called like public domain lit. So like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, things like that, where you take a lot of these different pieces from like public domain fiction and you mash them all together. Another's like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, where you just take one thing and then you take another thing and then you just mash it together like two dolls, bacon and kiss. That's basically what the Confluence setting is for me. You're taking this and that and just, and I love that.
All right. And for me, I'm Leah Liebzeller. You can find me on Twitter at PlayScholar, one word. And you can also hire me to consult for your community health, or if you want to know more about your community, or if you just want to talk through things that you want help with your community. As an anthropologist of game communities, I am here for all of that. It's not something you hear about very often, but if your community's having issues or you want to grow, I'm your person. Just DM me. And I don't know, media. Gosh, probably most of the anthropological stuff that I have learned over the many years of doing anthropology. Like, what are the different ways that humans can exist? Different types of governmental systems, monetary systems, economies can you actually have? Because we have so many. We have 700,000 years plus, I don't know, 20 or 30 other universes that we're pulling
Mm-hmm.
into this, which means that we have to have so many different ways of seeing and viewing and understanding and living in the world, and how do those things come together. That's like such an exciting thing. um and basically echoing what everyone else has said here for the inspirations that they
Mm-hmm.
have. But before we run out of time, uh, you could also follow Confluence at Cosmic Mirror RPG, all one word, and Publishing Goblin. You can follow at Dane Asmund, DaneAsmund on Twitter. I also want to highlight that we're going to be doing a crowdfunding campaign, platform to be announced summer 2023. We're going to be looking for playtesters later this year, so
Mm-hmm.
look out for that. And to the questions from Discord about how Taro is going to be making an appearance, how the Alleyman is going to be making an appearance, I can answer more of that in the chat in the BBG Discord, or we could talk on Publishing Goblin Discord as well.
Woo!
There are things. So anyway, so uh
We gotta
there
say bye.
is that. Yeah. Uh and then if you want to continue this conversation, we can answer more questions just on the Big Bad Online Discord.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you later. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Bye.